So I'm going to give you the last presentation on social acceptance of 3HP systems. My name is Thomas Friedrich from the Institute for Social Ecological Research, and together with my colleague Emanuel Sties, we are from this institute that works very interdisciplinary. So we are social scientists, but we also work together with natural scientists, with engineers on several topics and research areas, as you can see on the left. And we also work together with practitioners and stakeholders because we are convinced that they have to be involved in the research process. So very interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. So what we did in this working package on social acceptance of 3HP systems in the project was to try to better understand the potential non-technical impacts of those systems by identification of the interests and needs of key stakeholder groups, by the exploration of market safety and regulatory barriers, by determination of the benefits and incentives to overcome those barriers, and by identifying geographical, legal, and cultural differences. So what we did was to do in-depth stakeholder interviews with what we consider to be key stakeholders and national stakeholder workshops in 4 countries, which is Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and Norway. The stakeholder groups that we considered to be key stakeholders were investors of multi-family buildings, architects, manufacturers, heat pump manufacturers mainly, engineers, HVAC planners, technical consultants, representatives from associations, and heating installers. The topic that we were focusing on in the interviews, as also in the national workshops, were focusing on renewable heating and cooling based on electrical heat pumps such as 3HP. So what you can see here are 2 reports that you can find open access on our Zenodo community, 3HP community. You can also find all the other reports from my colleagues that presented before there. And the left one is about the interviews that we did before, and the right one is about the workshops that were based on our results of the interviews. So, of course, I cannot go into detail about all the interviews, but let me give you some key results that we had, that we found out in our interviews, in our stakeholder interviews, that were mainly about finding out what are the barriers and drivers of 3HP systems, meaning complex renewable heating systems based on electrical heat pumps. So, there were some crucial topics that were discussed in those interviews. You see some categories here. It was, of course, about economic efficiency, but it was also about simplicity, about complexity or simplicity of those systems, about practical feasibility, about competence and skill of those who implement those systems, about cooperation of all the different trades that are involved on the building site, and, of course, about public support. And we found out that contexts matter very much. We did these interviews in various countries, and there is differences nationally, climate differences, but also legal differences, but also regionally, if you think about the different cantons in Switzerland or the autonomous regions in Spain, and also locally differences. However, there are some common features, like heat pump systems call for higher skills on the part of planners and installers, especially in existing buildings. There is a need for improved standardization and harmonization of funding and approval processes. And heat pump systems call for a challenge of existing, well, they challenge existing business models, especially in the heating sector, and especially the heating sector was mentioned very many times in the interviews and later on also in the stakeholder workshops. Apparently they were kind of the bottleneck of the implementation of those systems. So we took those interviews from the interviews into the stakeholder workshops. We invited representatives of key stakeholders into workshops also in the 4 countries, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and Norway, and discussed those results with those experts. So the important transnational challenges that were identified in those workshops were investment upfront costs, but also the high planning and coordination effort of those systems, and again, the shortage of skilled workers. What you can see here on the right is a picture I just took a week ago in a German city. So it's funny for those who don't understand the German subtext and subtext. It's meaning like heating with oil, set for the future. And this is a heating business, heating and installing business, and kind of symptomatic to what we found out in the interviews and also the workshops. So this is their business model. This has been their business model so far, very successfully, and yeah, this is going to change. We also asked in the stakeholder workshops about key actors that can drive solutions. And the most mentioned there were building owners, because they make the investment decisions, HVAC planners, and again, the heating installers. And finally, we asked for suggestions for solutions, so what can be done to overcome those challenges that have been identified together. And among others, you can read here, it's that economic efficiency of heating and cooling systems should be considered over the entire life cycle, that there is a need for more support of new business models, such as energy contracting, that there's a need to simplify those systems and to provide easy-to-use planning tools, and yeah, last but not least, new finance and funding schemes are important. Thank you very much for your attention.